says in 2 Chronicles chapter 7, and you know it by now, then if my people who are called by my name will do these things, will humble themselves and pray, seek my face, and turn from our wicked ways. That's all I want to deal with today. We'll deal with I will next week. If my people, y'all see that? If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves, pray, seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways. Just for a second today, I want to preach on the subject, what would happen if? Help me with this and look at your neighbor. Say, neighbor, oh neighbor, what would happen if? That neighbor's tripping. Try your other neighbor and say, neighbor, oh neighbor, what would happen if? You may be seated in the presence of God. Let me tell you something about myself. There was a part of my life where I really had some anxiety trouble. There was, in about 2002, 2003, I want y'all to hear very closely. I preached the same sermon at the 8 o'clock service, so I want you to get the whole concept. I went through a part of my life where anxiety had almost taken over. Do y'all know what anxiety is? Anxiety is when you start thinking you're going to die, but you're not. It's actually a part of your brain that turns on a part of you that recreates a traumatic moment in your life. For me, and I'm a man, and you know, men don't talk about what's wrong with them. That's why we die quicker. Let me say that. And I don't mind expressing where I had trouble. 4 things happened to me in the span of 1 year. My sister-in-law died. My father died. My wife was diagnosed with cancer. And while my wife was in the hospital, I was on a job where I had to travel a lot. And I was traveling on my way to San Antonio. And my boss, who was 39 years old at that time, Chuck, his name was Chuck, he had a massive heart attack at 39 years old on the flight and died. Those 4 things created in me a mental block that started affecting my life. Okay. That 1 year, in 2002, 2003, created an anxiety that every time I got back in that situation, I relived those events as if they were going to happen again. So every time I would get on a plane, I created within myself a recollection of that event, which created a mental block in me that created frustration in me. So what I would do is when I got on a flight, and unfortunately it was my job to fly, I would act like that was going to happen again. Now, I had been on 1 million flights, and that only happened 1 time. But I created in my brain a frustrated part that I would not let the left frontal lobe dictate my future by rejecting what had happened in the past. Okay, y'all catch this. Some of us have allowed life events to recreate themselves even when they are not happening. Ain't going to be that much shouting today because I'm trying to make you think. When stuff happens in our lives, we divorce ourselves from the possibility of if, because we always go back to the wrong part of the brain to pull up what has already happened instead of what could happen. Since I have so much trouble getting you to come to Wednesday night Bible class, I decided to bring Wednesday night Bible class to you. When you don't know how to compartmentalize your frustration as events instead of consistent history, you recreate new ghosts to have something to run from. Let me let that sink in. That all of your life hadn't been bad. Events have been. but you've had more good days than bad days. But what you do is magnify all of the events and you create them as a life, even though that's not accurate. Let me give it to you like this. I tried it out with the staff, and they laughed at me, but I'm going to give it to y'all because y'all are more Christians than they are. Here it is. Here it is. I want you to catch this. Can everybody see this? I'll move in a minute. With your brain, there are two different lobes in your brain. There is one part of your brain, the right part of your brain, which functions automatically. It functions in a way that allows you to breathe without thinking about it. It allows you to think even while you're sleeping. You don't have to get in the car every morning and relearn how to drive. It is things that you do in a repetitious format. It's walking. It's moving your hands, remembering how many sensory nerves it is for you to pick up a toothbrush and brush your teeth. All of that is on this side, a normal daily activity. Y'all with me? But then the problem with this side is that in it, we also store events that were not positive. Your daddy not being in your life. That divorce. That day that you got laid off from that job. Furloughed. That friend who you thought was a friend, who you told her everything about you, and she told everybody else. That event in your life where you took care of your mama, and you were the only child to take care of your mama, and when she died, everybody else came to get her stuff. Your family. All that stored on this side. The left part of your brain is for you to learn new information. Okay? New information. I'm going to say new info. I-N-F. And spell check will kill you, won't it? I-N-F-O. New info. That's when you get a new phone and you were forced to move from your flip phone. That's y'all ain't going to help me here. That's when you got a new car because they can't put no more tape on that car, and you got to go get a new car. And unfortunately, you have to go get one of those cars that you don't have to put the key in the ignition anymore. And that first day you had it, you drove all the way to work with the key still at the house, and you couldn't turn the car off, so you had to drive all the way. Y'all ain't gonna help me here. It's new information that you have to relearn how to do so you can move it over here. But it is, the left part of your brain is for you to think forward. What we do in our lives is before we think forward, we go retrieve information from down here to make decisions on what we're going to do over here. So what we do is we transfer our hurts over to our forward-thinking part of the brain, which divorces our ability to try something new because you keep going back to what has happened. Okay, hold on. That's why I can psychologically tell you what's wrong with you out of one sentence. Because if your sentence is talking about yesterday instead of tomorrow, I know you're stuck in your hurt. Okay, y'all not going to have church with me. See, we can come to service every Sunday and we can holler and leave out of here and scream and foam at the mouth and fall on the floor. But if you ain't learning nothing, you got to deal with life out there. Okay, we're trying to create a thinking church because Paul says, whatsoever things are good, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are a good report, think on these things. Here's the problem. The reason you can't accept the new guy is because you remember the old guy. The reason you can't give yourself at the new job is because you remember when they laid you off at the old job. The reason you can't trust yourself when you make that statement, I ain't going to trust nobody, everybody ain't treated you wrong. You just magnify the 3 friends that you thought you had, and you go out. So what we do in life is that we have a problem with moving with our I will because we are subject and we are bound by our if. And our if has given us the inability to overcome the stuff that has happened to what could happen if I tried it another way. So when I would get on a flight, the first thing I learned how to do was get me a bottle of water. And I would sip on that water. And while I was sipping on that water, I would think about what I was going to do when I got there. So that means that when I got there, that means I made it there. And eventually I stopped doing that because I retrained my new information to divorce myself from the stuff that was keeping me from moving forward. Because this part of your brain is very important. It keeps you safe, but sometimes it can keep you from growing. All right, y'all not going to help me here. That's why we are 20 days in, and you have said to yourself, you're going to lose weight. But you have done nothing over here to create new stuff from here to change it. I'm going to do better at my job, and you're still getting there at 7:35, and you were supposed to be there at 7:30. All right, y'all not gonna. I'm gonna do better with my tongue, and I'm gonna stop using foul language. Well, you still put yourself around people who that's their normal language, so they pull out of you the part of you that you're trying to get rid of. Y'all not gonna have church here. So what God says in this text, if my people who are called by my name, what he actually says to us in this text, that the word if is a thinking process. It's not just a possibility. It's something you have to work on to change. So what God says to us in our thinking part is he says the if is on this side, the I will. So what does God say? God says, if my people who are called by my name will do what? Humble themselves. And do what? Pray. And seek my face. Catch this. He says, and turn from your jacked up ways. Y'all ain't going to help me here. Then he says, you don't have to worry about this because he says, I will. Okay. Hold on. But you can't fuss at God for the I will if you won't do the ifs. I'm going to have a better relationship with my husband and ain't prayed for him in 20 days. I'm going to do my wife better and I ain't asked God to bless her life. I'm going to do that. I'm going to stop eating. I'm working on myself. I'm trying to diet, but I started slow this year. I'm not eating bread. And this weekend, my son's birthday, so we took him, he loves Olive Garden, so we went to Olive Garden, and I had to I couldn't wait to get to Olive Garden to think about the bread. Y'all know the bread. That man brought that bread, he brought that bread in, and he accidentally put it right under my lip, and he put it down, I was trying to, but I had to prepare myself before I got there, because there are people around who know my struggle, and sometimes won't help with my ultimate cause. Blake held that bread up and said, hello, is it me you're looking for? He said, I can see it in your eyes. That's the devil. That's the devil. I'm dealing with him. I tell him, get thee behind me, Satan. What am I saying? I'm saying that you can't change what God is going to do if you're unwilling to change who you are. So what Solomon gets in his response to his prayer out of 2 Chronicles chapter 6, he gets the answer. Y'all know in 2 Chronicles chapter 6, he says, if we sin, God, do this. If we do this, God, if you stop it from raining, do this. And God says, well, let me give you one sentence because you gave me 36 verses of ifs, and all of that can be resolved if you do this one thing. So what does Paul say? That's the book of Romans. What did God say? He says, first of all, if you know who you are over here, you are my people. You can understand what I will do when you understand you are my people. So the first thing God deals with in this text is he says, you got to understand your position. Everybody say position. Your position in the family of God provides you privileges that only comes from your position. Okay, how do I get in that position? The book of Romans clearly says, and we dealt with it last year, if you believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, that he died on the cross and he rose up on the third day, by faith you become a child of God. And in that faith of becoming a child of God, you do some things that God has asked you to do. Get baptized and walk a new life in Christ Jesus. He's simply saying that when you know who you are, there are some I wills that automatically come because of your position. There are some things my son will get just simply because he is my child. He gets to live in my house. He gets to eat at my table. He gets to wear the clothes that I provide. He gets some benefits because he is under my covering. Let me give it to you a different way. He is under my responsibility. He gets that even when he's bad. Even when I'm frustrated with him, I don't put him out the house to sleep on the street for a night. Why? Because he still has my name. And sometimes because of that action, we forego whose we are, because even when we've been bad, God still has been good. So you forget you a child of God because God is the I will, and he knows he's dealing with iffy people. Okay. Why is this positioning? God says, if my people who have been called by my name, why is it just if my people and not the calling part? The name of God also suggests the covering of God. Okay. Because what is his name? To us, his name is God. To us, his name is the Christ. To us, his name is the Messiah, the Mashiach, the anointed one. But in their day, in the Old Testament, they understood his name to be so much more. That he was not just Yahweh, he was Yahweh Nisi. He wasn't just Yahweh, he was Yahweh Rapha. He was not just Yahweh Rapha, he was Jehovah Shalom. He was Jehovah Nisi. He was Jehovah that had so many connotations. That's why when Moses said, I'll go for you, I got a stuttering problem, I can't talk, will you send my brother with me, Aaron, and when we go, I need to know that I can tell Pharaoh who sent me. And God said, all you need to know is I am that I am. Moses says, what does that mean? He said, you will understand it after your 40 years of dealing with the I amness of who God is. Why is he I am that I am? He's simply saying, I am everything you need when you need it. When you can't sleep, I am your peace. When you don't have anything to eat, I am your bread. When you're thirsty, I am your water. When you're friendless, I am a friend who will stick closer than a brother. He says, first of all, you got to understand being called by his name also means you are called by his blessings. And when you understand your position in God, it creates in you a desire to go forward, not embarrassing him. Okay, y'all stay with me. Wake up now. Wake up now. I know y'all want to shout, but let me give it to you another way. I act differently out here when I reflect about who I represent over here. If I ain't representing nobody, I can act any way I want to act. But when I recognize everywhere I go, I'm a representative of God, it makes me want to live like who my daddy is, who my big brother is. So that's why when you go out knowing you are his people, and your position reflects your responsibility. But let me give this to you. Not only is it your position, he says, my people who are called by my name will humble themselves. Everybody say humble. It's not only your position in God that is important, it's also your positioning that creates your posture. Okay. Now let me give it to you a different way. Humility is not you walking around scared to speak up for yourself. It's not you with your head down and scratching when you're not itching and mumbling up under your voice. That's not what humility is. It's not people pushing you and you let them push you. That's not what God is talking about, because the same God says, blessed are the meek in Matthew chapter 5, and blessed are the merciful. He's the same God who went to the temple and turned over. I mean, I think there was times when Jesus would tell them, you stiff-necked, uncircumcised jokers. Jesus was all of that. But what he's saying is that you are humble because you know how to use the correct side of your brain. Okay. Humility is you being able to say on my right frontal lobe that anything I can do without God means I don't need God. Okay. I'm going to give you a second to think about what can you do today without God being involved. I can help you with that. Let him turn off your oxygen. And I don't care what your education is. I don't care if you went to Harvard. I don't care if you went to MCI. I don't care if you went to Paul Quinn. I don't care where you went. Your education won't help you when your oxygen is not there. You did not remind yourself to breathe last night. Your alarm clock didn't wake you. It was the Holy Spirit that pushed his hand over your eyes and lifted up your eyelid. And the more I think, then over here, I start thinking. Okay, y'all missed that. When I think about Jesus, and when I know how jacked up I am, and even when he should have put me out, he let me stay in, I start moving forward thinking, because I can't help but to think. Now, if you only think about your bad days, and if you're always just rehearsing your hurt, you will never get to your healing. Let me give you some information just in case you don't hear what I'm saying. Everybody's been hurt. Okay, let me give it to you. Everybody's been at a funeral where they had to sit on the front row. Everybody has had somebody talk about it. You're not the only. I got a guy who makes his ministry to talk about me on Facebook all the time. And I mean, he wears me out because the way we do ministry here, I mean, every week there's Paul Day this, Paul Day that. And he ought to send me some money because he used my name so much. And I tell you how you know you're growing, how you know you're moving forward, because I saw him at a funeral this week. And I was standing on the wall, so many people at that funeral, and I was standing on the wall, and just so happened he was sitting on the same side I was standing, and he was walking out, and I was standing right at the door. And I saw him coming. And I thank God I had time to think. Y'all not going to help me. because I started thinking about how good God has been to me, and that I am his child. So I used this side so that I could use this side to thank. So as he walked to me, I held the door open for him to walk out. You know what he did? He shook my hand, and he hugged me and whispered in my ear. I said, hey, bro, what you doing? He said, man, you are doing a great job. Y'all not going to help me here. That is some people in your life that want to keep you here because they're scared of you when you get. Have you ever noticed in the Bible, the Pharisees and the Sadducees never got mad at people who were still sick? When they would get healed and they start singing, that's when they wanted to bring them to the high priest. When the boy who had 38 years was at the pool of Bethesda and he finally got his legs back, they said, who healed you? I want you to catch that. They never said, I can't believe you've been healed. Y'all remember the boy who was dead and Jesus was on his way celebrating and the family was coming and he just said, get up? They never want to deal with you when you start working from the left side of your brain. And people who are still wanting to hold you down are people who want you to be mad at God and not humble with God because they want to remind you of what you used to be instead of what God wants you to be. And they want you to live on the negative side of if than the positive side of if. And sometimes your purging might be to get folks out of your life that keeps bringing you back to the wrong side of your brain. Okay. Some of y'all, I love you. I love everybody. I want everybody to make it happen. But there's some folks I don't want to talk to. Okay, all right. There's some folks I hug and I move. But then some people I hug and I stay because they're working. And some folks, I don't read their articles. Okay? In some books, I don't read. And some people I don't invest in. You know why? Because if you can't ever move from your events and make them obstacles of history and not obstacles of future, you'll stay in what you can't be when God is trying to take you for where you could be. Okay, all right. Life has two things that you can't control: time and change. You can't stop time, and you can't stop change. As much as you would like to control change, there is nothing you can do. Right now, they are changing us at the bank. Because when you go in there, they don't have tellers anymore. They got computers. Well, you stand in front of the computer. And I've embarrassed them over across the street because I talk to the computer. Good morning. How you doing? Did you have a good day this week? How's the job going? You like this job? And the manager come on, Pastor, stop that. That's embarrassing. You know what? Because I'm trying to bring my history into my present. What God teaches us in this text, when you humble yourself, he can promote you to the I will part. When you recognize he can't bless anybody who's arrogant. He can't bless anybody who can't get off of their events. You had to raise your children by yourself, but you did. You got laid off but didn't lose the house. Isn't that a blessing? The doctor said they don't know how to deal with your sickness, and you've been carrying that sickness for 20 years, and you're still here. That whatever you choose to let dictate you will become your identity. So he says, humble yourself. And he says, you got to pray and seek God's face. Is this helping anybody? I said, is this helping anybody? If anybody, say amen, baby. You all I got in here. He says, what you got to do is you got to pray That's on the if side. And the I will side says, seek his face. Okay, let me explain this. Praying and seeking God's face is two different things. Prayer is what I do to God. Seeking God, his face is what I wait from God. We have been taught in the church how to pray. We don't get taught how to seek. What is seeking? It's your answer to your prayer. We talked about it Wednesday night, or 2 Wednesday nights ago, that we know how to pray. We don't know how to wait for the response. You can't go to God every day saying, will you, and never hush long enough to wait for the response. Prayer is you putting your email out to God. Seeking his face is waiting for God to respond to your email. How do you do that, preacher? Let me give you ways to do that. First of all, spend some time by yourself with your phone off, with the television off, with nothing on, in a place of solitude, and do nothing for 10 minutes, but just sit there and wait for a response. First of all, 2 things will happen. First of all, you will scare yourself for what you think about. It'll scare you to death what's going through your mind. But secondly, sometimes God will give you an answer to a prayer, but you haven't given God enough time to answer you because you're always talking. Here's the challenge with that, before I go sit down. Many times we reject his response because over here you have already decided what you want the answer to be. So that guy is in your life, and every day he's at your job offering you a free cup of coffee. He comes to your desk, how you doing? The problem is he doesn't look like what you prayed for. She is there, and every time you need something, those girls you like are there when you have money. She's there. And she's willing to go to McDonald's and split 10 nuggets, 5 with 1 barbecue sauce, because she just want to be with you. But she don't come in the package. Y'all ain't gonna have church with me. That job that you've been praying for offered you a job in the mailroom. But because it doesn't have you a corner office, you reject it because you're seeking God's face comes with requirements of him answering it like you want it. And a lot of times God is giving you an answer that you reject. Okay, let me give it to you another way. You knew good and well you shouldn't have bought that car. The I will part says, I'll bless your land. I'll bless. The if part is God is asking you before you even seek me, before you even ask for my response, start putting me at the beginning instead of the end. Okay. So you've been to every car dealership, and every one of them tells you that your credit won't get it, and your change is strained. So you look at all the car dealerships, and then you end up at Clay Cooley. Because once you try them all, y'all ain't going to help me. I watch television too. He said, come try me. And you never prayed about it before you bought. But what you do is when you start getting payments, you ask, God, where is your I will? Before you start dating him and before you marry him, if you say, God, let let me see what I need to see out of him, you won't have to be over here saying, God, where are you? If you be honest with yourself, the mistakes you made, you didn't ask God to get involved with them. But then when you in them, you blame God for them. And God said, if you put me at obedience, obedience is more important than sacrifice. What is obedience more important than sacrifice? He's actually saying you don't have to sacrifice so much when you learn how to obey. So what he says is that you got to seek his face. And you have to pray. And when you pray, then he says you have to turn from your evil ways. Turning from your evil ways is simply this. As I go to my seat, you got to learn how to purge. Purge means to remove stuff you don't need. Okay. This is the hardest part of the if part. Because purging means I have to mentally block stuff that won't allow me to receive my I will. Some of us need to purge friends. Some of us need to purge church members. Some of us need to purge family members. Some of us need to purge old habits. Some of us need to purge old ideas. Some of us need to purge old thought patterns. Some of us need to purge old ways. Because the purging process is the process of you removing stuff that keeps blocking your I will. How do you do it? Somebody asked me in the 8 o'clock service, Pastor, that sounds good, but how do you do that? Well, purging sometimes is even a process within itself. Because the purging process is you protecting yourself from what you used to do. Before you call him, before you call her, this time you pray. Before you do this, won't you pray about it? Maybe you move from 3 packs of cigarettes to 2 packs a week. Okay, y'all not. Maybe because what we try to do in our life is today you were thinking of all the stuff you're going to stop. But the stuff that you've been doing is in your natural DNA. So if it's naturally for me to smoke, if it's naturally for me to overeat, if it's natural for me to sin, if it's natural for me to cuss, how you spell cuss? I asked Deacon Sneeder. I ain't going to tell you. If it's natural for me to do what's evil in the sight of God, I got to retrain my brain to do what's good. And some of that changing from what I used to do to what I need to do doesn't happen on a Sunday morning on January the 20th. It is a process. Sometimes you got to work out your soul salvation with fear and trembling. That means every day I work on me to get to the promises of God if I'll change my way. How do you work that process? On my computer, I got a place on my email, Microsoft Outlook, that gives me emails that I've read. And then when I read them, it puts it in a box called trash. All right. I don't automatically purge until I've gone back through my trash to make sure there's nothing in there that I might need. When I have addressed it and I'm done with it, I start removing, purging files that were from 2018 so it doesn't block my email. One time I wasn't purging anything. I had about 3,000 emails in my trash, and my email stopped functioning correctly. So we called Microsoft to find out what was wrong, and they said every now and then you got to get rid of the stuff you don't need for your new stuff to come in. he actually talked to me theologically. He said, you can't get new emails and you can't get new information because you won't let go of your old information. He said, Pastor, what you need to do, you need to go through and look at what you don't need to get rid of it so you can get the new stuff that you do need. In your purging process, you got to understand maybe God is not blessing you like you want him to bless you because you pray, you seek his face, but it's one thing you won't do is turn from your evil ways and seek his face. And I don't want to be one of those superficial churches that don't tell you it's not hard. It's easy to do. No, when you've been negative all your life, it's hard to shift to positive. When you've come out of a family that's been drinking and every night all you did to relax your body is to get you a drink, it's hard to start adjusting that. If you've been smoking all of your life and one guy this morning, I mean, we got a real church. It ain't fake, pump, and circumstance. A guy said, man, I've been smoking since I was in Vietnam. And he said that smoking in Vietnam helped me to get through. I said, I understand that, but you're not in Vietnam anymore. He said, I smoke 3 packs a day. I said, okay, I can help you. Buy 3 packs and bring 1 up here to me, and I'll put it in my office. He said, you smoke 2 packs? I said, no. Not yet. You never know what the future might hold. But I said, no, I'm going to hold 1 for you. And I'm going to make sure you don't go buy another one until 2 becomes your normal day. I said, and then we're going to do that to making it 1 your normal day. I said, don't get up in the morning and say, I'm going to stop cold turkey. No, it's a process. That's why you and I are still here. You don't act like you used to. You're better. You don't talk like you used to. You're getting better. But you don't want to wait and never turn from your evil ways and just depend on the grace of God. The grace of God is you and I understanding that we are his children. We need to seek his face. And if you understand all that, it should let you live outwardly out of response of what he has done for you inwardly. But you got to be willing to change. You got to be willing to change. The guy who created Redbox in front of the stores, the reason he created Redbox, because one time he went to Blockbuster, and he accidentally kept one of those VHS tapes over a weekend in California, San Bernardino, California, and he got a bill that Monday for $42 on one of those VHS tapes. He said, there got to be a better way. So he created a response to what hurt him and not be a slave to Blockbuster. He created Redbox where you can pick and choose when you return. And he created a store that didn't need anybody to man it out of a response to his hurt. So he didn't become a subject of his hurt. He would create a response to his hurt that blessed him. Here's your question. Are you being a subject to your past, or are you having an answer for your past to move towards your destiny? Do you have a Redbox life, or do you have a Blockbuster's life? Are you out of date? Are you out of business? Are you spiritually dead while you quoting scriptures? Does every time you talk about what has happened instead of what will happen? Are you looking backwards or do you look forward? If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves, pray and seek my face, turn from their evil ways, I will do what I guarantee I will do. You got to decide today, how am I going to work on me to be better, to do better? Because we serve a mighty good God. Let's pray right now. Father God, we love you. Help us, God. Help us to allow our brains to work in such a way that we move forward with our wills instead of being suffocated by your ifs. The ifs of our past, the ifs of our hurts, the ifs of our situations, the ifs of our negative lives. Help us to move towards a better purpose, to move us forward and not regress us back. Help us, God, to be better. Help us to learn our position. Help us to learn correct posture, but also help us to purge. The purging process is the hardest process of that turning from our evil ways, turning more to you. Dear God, help everyone in this room to see your face in everything they do. Bless us and keep us. In your Son's name we do pray, and all who believe.